Let's see. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. All right. I'm going to, I think, maybe do this since most of you are to my right. Okay. As I was sitting here kind of listening to that, I looked over and I realized, I think Nancy would appreciate this and probably Hadley. My card for selling my books is like an old watercolor scratch pad. Yeah. So those of us who like to create, we just like to create. It was probably scratch pad from when I made the watercolor for the cover of the book, actually. Yeah, actually it is, right? Because look, see, there's the green. It's funny. It traveled all this way, like for over 4 years. Well, anyways, thanks for having me. It's been a delight, and thanks, as I've said at numerous occasions this summer, to the open air folks for doing all they do to really keep the arts alive and put artists and writers in cool places. So, being that I'm only part of the way through my residency, I don't have a lot of poetry that I've written local to the area that's finished yet. I have been working on some things, particularly some that began when I was doing the orientation in Butte, because I was walking around taking photographs early in the morning, and I took tours there of the Berkeley Pit and of the mines and so forth. And there's a few that I'm working on from here. In fact, one of them is about the black rabbits in town. What's the deal with the black rabbits? Is that a thing here?
No, they don't exist.
I was afraid someone would say that. Anyways. Well, I'm writing a poem about the black rabbits, the wild black hares. Yeah, I can't tell if they're domestic and they've sort of been released or what. There's a little family over near where I'm living for the summer. Anyways, so the poems I'm going to read tonight are not necessarily local, but they are new, and they're ones that this residency has allowed me to finish because, honestly, through the school year, it's almost impossible to work on anything creative. And since I knew there would be food here, because you Philipsburg folks seem to really love food, I thought I'd read one that's kind of silly, but it's fun as an opener. It's an ode. This is Song for the Butter Knife. Generous, gentle blade, what garden harvests you've spanned, what orchard and arbor jams you've spread, what cakes you've flourished with the signature of your ridged belly, carrot and raisin and double-decker orange. What Cool Whip on Jell-O, what celery with Jiffy, Peter Pan, and Smuckers, what butter, God help me the butter. Sweet cream, country crock, and Land O'Lakes on cornbread, on crackers, on give us this day our daily bread, white rye, Italian, and honey whole wheat. For the jars and locks and lids you've pried, the screw heads you've twisted, the cat toys you've swept out from under the stove, the mugs you've cleaned, wearing a rag on your head like a little turban. For these we sing. Mute but when clicking the table or hitting the floor, met by happy dog with happy tongue, your heavy handle with generations of scars has tapped knees to banjo and mandolin, catching seasons of light through old windows. What prayers perfected, what curses deflected, what toasts reflected in your patinaed sheen. Not tangled like belligerent forks or mismatched spoons, crying for orphans left overnight in a toolbox or glove box or pair of puppet socks. Not vain like the steak knife who steals undue glory while his wooden handle creeps with rot, blade failing and tip bent. You, O unassuming butter knife, like the breeze that wafts honeysuckle in June, like the hen that laves herself across all eggs with equal affection, are master of self and service, proper boundary in boundless love, gliding, indiscriminate silver across and beyond our years. My boyfriend has a 12-year-old son who loves that poem, and he really likes to read it. Like if I host a poetry gathering at the house, he wants to be the one to read that poem. Yeah. He especially likes the part about the cat toys because we all do that. Like, it's her favorite place to put the toys. This is a brand new one, which actually I wrote yesterday, and I told my friend Robert up here, and he said, well, that's exactly why you should read it, because it probably has all these glitches that I'll catch when I'm, sharing it with an audience. So you guys get to be my guinea pigs. In the Midwest, we had Aurora Borealis this spring. I think you guys probably had that too. We also had the solar eclipse. So it was kind of a big spring for events happening in the sky. And I'm working on an eclipse poem that I really wanted to have finished for tonight. It's about Tecumseh's eclipse 200 years ago, but it's not ready to read to public yet. So I'm going to read Aurora Borealis, May 10th, 2024. And this is in Peninsula, Ohio. We just settled in when a texting lit up the dark. The northern lights are visible in our sky. Scrambled out of bed in our PJs, downstairs and out the front step. Cement damp under our bare feet. At first, not much. Then, in the northwest corner, faint purple and green, glowing in shallow waves and patches. According to the Akron Beacon Journal, a G5 geomagnetic storm of coronal mass ejections from the sun's upper atmosphere emitting huge bubbles of coronal plasma threaded by intense magnetic fields that travel up to 5 days to connect with our planet's magnetic field. Some radio frequencies are absorbed, others reflected, leading to rapidly fluctuating signals and unexpected propagation paths that may disrupt satellite-based telephone, internet, radio, and television. The oak tree sighs, as if to say, "Oh, Aurora, you again. It's been a while. Hello." And I nestled into Justin, back against his chest, arms snug to ward off chill. The colors showed best on our phones, and we were sleepy. Called his mom and stayed with her on the line while she drove out to a deserted grocery store lot with open sky. Then, being midnight, we climbed the stairs to bed. Justin rose once again to look, but I didn't need the window. I could see through the ceiling, hear the winds cracking and hissing, a synesthesia of orchid, flamingo, lime. Never the same river twice, its dance elusive, amid a surrounding wealth of teal and indigo, where from some inner fold of sky, darkness split open and a host of great blue herons lifted, then flying squirrels, snapping turtles, rams with whirling horns, gold jackals and thick-bodied fish, fins iridescent in amniotic ocean that expanded indefinitely, eons of time and space only inches apart, beyond predation, beyond possession, only love. I heard the glitches, and I know Robert did too. We can talk. This one is actually, and I've never read this one in public before, but this is about a student that I lost in 2018 when I was working with kids from the Blackfeet Reservation. And I'd worked with her very closely all summer for 6 weeks with the program. And a few days after the program ended, we learned that she had died. So the title of this one is, "The Story Goes That Change is Inevitable." As if awakening from 1,000 years, you girls studied those lines on damp sheets of Xeroxed poems I handed you off the dock from the Book of Osiris, and you scribbled your thoughts in wet pencil along the margins, your black braids floating beside you. Then you dunked and reemerged smiling. Your name went before you. Heaven talks about. That's her name. Did someone know at your birth how briefly you'd be here? The lilies were tangled beneath our ankles, us girls, teachers, students, splashing in the last of late July in Montana, waiting for summer to fold up and September to unfurl. But you weren't among the class's first day back. You gave me your bucket list poem the morning you got kicked out of summer program for drugs, your flashing black eyes sorrowful under those impossible lashes, your sweetheart-shaped chin pressed to your chest. I didn't even get to hug you, then a week later got the call. They say it takes millions of years to form life, human life. I imagine you, braiding the sweet seaweed and bobbing to the surface, a queen of all things light. So there's just 2 left, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the community project that I've been working on and get you involved. This one I wrote, I guess last winter before, but I just kind of finished it this summer because sometimes, at least for me, I think I'm a slow writer. It takes time to percolate. Usually I'll take something like the Aurora Borealis and I'll shove it in a drawer for like 2 years, and then 2 years later I know what to do with it. And I hope that if I die in the meantime, it'll be like Emily Dickinson and someone will find this chest of like writing that I never submitted to any publications. So anyways, this one is called War's Eve, February 2022. Beeler comes Sunday night and we pour 2 shots of writer's tears, sit at the big desk and recount the headlines. A 25-year-old teacher fleeing Kyiv who'd never seen so many cats on the train. Everyone, it seems, trying to get out with their cats. And the Brits, young men with Cockney accents, suddenly small, like boys in men's boots, leaning high to the wall, chins barely touching its stones, saying to the officer, "Yes, we'd like to sign up for the Ukraine military, or whatever you call it." And the sunflower seeds, so that if a soldier falls, the national flower will bloom where he's bled. One of those aching realizations that by next week will be old, heavy news. Beeler and I are in a Sunday evening an ocean away. My kitten is pawing at our pens. Our throats are warm with whiskey. Our friendship is ordinary, in that we'll meet at the same time, same place, next month. We unwrap bright Ukrainian candies that I bought from Lviv last week, where immigrants gathered at dusk to light candles before windows filled with red embroidered dresses, Plansky eggs dyed pink and green and gold, delicate flowers and stars winding around black voids. Beeler shoots another round and hugs me tight as I wave. Snow leaks in under the door like errant thoughts. My friend Danka in Slovakia has opened her home as a hiding place, a village where 20 years back, her mother served egg liqueur in earthenware cups, vachny konyak at 5 a.m., shells silt finding our tongues from the bottom of the jug, na zdravie, then her mother's thumb drawing a cross on each of our foreheads before Danka walked me to the train. Shadows swirling in a dark station, a strange parlance I didn't yet speak, the language of parting ways. And this is the last that I'm going to read of my own tonight. And this poem kind of arose out of thinking about war and what we're supposed to do with that in our hearts and our minds as human beings who don't want it to be happening, but are, even in our own personal lives, right? Like not just things that happen overseas, but so the title of this poem is a Greek word that is the name for the species of fish that have the ability to fly. And I'm going to butcher this word, but I need to learn how to pronounce it better if I'm going to read this poem in public. Exocitidae. Maybe mercy is the feather that gives hope plumage. How else would men love in the aftermath of brotherly war? Such questions call to me like crows, jagged, gnawing at 2 a.m. St. Francis, how did you conjure grace for those that killed soft creatures with bright eyes? How did you shelter the dove nested in your own breast? The ribcage hardly feels stanza enough to carry out its job. What action in domestic affairs? Unlikely flight? Exocitidae? Like an ancient fish, donning wings to survive across eons? Or perhaps an upheld hand, universal sign for come no closer, go in peace. What in genocide's shadow? Exodus? Sanctions? Arrest? Not death for death, at least some courage beyond complicity, than years grappling with grief's heavy stones. At the bottom of the stream, beneath cloud cover, swirling mud eddies and hungry minnows, the water is clear, still. There the bones open and the heart swims out. So you can probably hear little bits of place coming into those poems, whether they're set out here or they're set in Ohio. I think we can never really escape where we're from, even if we try to, right? And I think about these things a lot, and I thought about these questions of place a lot when I was designing the project to do with the community here this summer, because I didn't want to just be like a tourist, you know? And yet, I didn't want to be a voyeur, and I didn't feel that I had the right to compose anything about a town that I'm not from. When I wrote my book, Bitterroot, I had been living on the reservation for a while, and I was deeply embedded there. At the time, I had a partner who ran a youth home that served tribal kids. I was full-time teaching in the public school system. I was doing summer Upward Bound with Blackfeet Res. I mean, I was like in it for a stretch of years. But I didn't feel like I could come to Philipsburg and be here for just like 3 to 6 weeks of like collecting stuff in order to put a project together. So what I decided to do was have the townspeople tell their own stories in their own voices from their own, you know, perspectives. And so I hand some things out, and maybe Kelly, if you're still willing to help. If you do this stack, I'll do the other. And so I had my friends at the Wick Poetry Center back at Kent State University help me build a website called, and I named it and so forth. It's called Dear Philipsburg, a community poem. But it's not just a poem, it's also artwork and photography and so forth. And the way the website is set up is that there are 3 model poems. One, of course, by the famous Richard Hugo about degrees of gray in Philipsburg when Philipsburg was really struggling. The other is from my book, Bitterroot. It's called Valentine's Dance. It's a place-based poem from up on the res. And then the last one is an I Am From poem by George L. Lyon, who's from the South. And each of those model poems is on there so that anyone who wants to participate can look and see what other writers have done with the notion of place when expressing themselves. And then there are little individual prompts. And you can go on the website and you can pick a prompt and then just write like a line. There are a few people who've gone up and submitted actual poems. And then the children, I worked with them to make place-based collages. So those are less written word and more visual art. But what we're gonna do just for the next like 5 minutes or so is I'm gonna give you time to look through the handout that I just gave you. And we've got pens here. Maybe Kelly can hand those out too. And if technology is not your thing, you can fill out the sheet. You can put your name or keep it anonymous, and I'll be collecting them. Or if you'd rather not turn it in and you want time to think about it, you could scan the QR code on your phone, and it'll take you directly to the website, and you can enter whatever it is you'd like to contribute yourself. And I'm very serious when I say it only might be one line. It could just be something as simple as Philipsburg feels like home, or Philipsburg is, you know, where all my loved ones are, or Philipsburg is really dark in the winter. You know, it can be pretty simple, but it's just a way to kind of connect everyone. And then I'm also going to hand out the flyer so that when you leave here, you can share this with your friends, family, neighbors, kids, and so forth. Does anybody have any questions before I just give you time to contemplate?
So, one-liners are really helpful for this kind of project.
Yeah, they very much are. All right, well, thank you for having me. I'm going to go around and collect from those of you who are ready to turn them in. Otherwise, I really hope to see some lines from you on the Community Poem website. Thank you.
Read your poem, Steve.
Come on, Steve.
Oh, actually, you know what? I do have a poem. Oh, yeah. Yeah, here we go.
But it's not by me, and if you'll give me just 1 minute, I'll run out to the truck and, or, what did I drive anyway?
The car, yeah.
That's my phone. No, just kidding. Many years ago, my mother became a widow early on, which a lot of mothers do, it seems like. I moved out of the house, got married, and our house on the hill up there was actually built by N.B. Ringling, who was a early day mining engineer here that actually graduated or attended the same college that Philip Dietersheim attended, and that was the Freiburg. Yes. Who said that? Oh, there you go. Joe Freiburg over there. Right there. So anyway, the old house up here, we didn't have anything but wood heat in it. And my mother being a subject of World War II and having experienced the Great Depression in her young years, was very conservative on everything. Not quite as conservative as my grandmother, who saved the partitions in the shredded wheat and turned them into penny postcards. So anyway, we had a wood stove in the kitchen there that we tried heating the whole house with. And anyway, it was a Blaze King. Actually, it wasn't a Blaze King, it was a Blaze King Princess. Blaze King Princess on my hearth, what a cold and hungry thing thou art. I cram into your gaping maw, all demanded, but you disdain to thaw. These poor old bones, but how wondrous sweet, if you would but share your radiant heat. I give, and yet you spurn my generous bounty and refuse to burn. Your frigid greed has brought you shame and disgrace to your royal name. Thou art not princess, but ebony slut, for nothing can appease your gut. But you will not grant me one desire, that you share some warmth, some fire. You must be banished from my hearth and home. It's far, far better to be alone. Yea, thou art I can't. It's her handwriting. To behold, but I cannot abide one that is so cold. So as you are exhaled, sadly I shout, oh princess, why can't you put out?